All right, children, it's bedtime story time. Yeah. All right, so chapter 1, we met little Azana, and he got into some trouble, right? And the ark was stolen. And that's about all we know, right? Some weird dude saved him and a big giant girl. So moving on to chapter 2. So 598 years later. Wow, that's a big jump, right? I am a warrior, but it has been countless years since my sword has tasted blood. Blessed are those that await vigilantly, but never see the day of fear and anticipation. Blessed are those who read these words and remember those who have come before them. I write now in preparation and hope that a sign will come in my lifetime. If my brothers and I fail, I pray you who follow in our footsteps will heed our mistakes and finish this great work that has lingered too long, haunting our dreams with its promise. For now, this is our tale. Every tribe and civilization has passed down a record of an ancient flood and the people who were destroyed by the unrelenting rains. Few, however, tell of the forgotten evil that demanded the need for the heavens to open and wash away the black stain from the earth's canvas. A race of fallen spirits came to the world of men and took their daughters to breed demons that corrupted men's minds and understanding. Though this wickedness through this wickedness and perversion. Oh, no, I was right. Though this wickedness and perversion was cleansed by the ancient waters that covered cities and mountains alike, a remnant of the past survived, a vile impurity not destroyed by fire. A mystic known as Imura was able to resurrect her body. In time she had renewed the race of spirit-blood giants who ruled over men, but a brotherhood was established to counter them. Given a sacred blade, blessed by Michael the Archangel, 3 warriors were chosen from among men to purge the land of the abominations and hunt the witch Amura. Even if a spirit blood was slain by man, the disembodied soul would live on. However, the sword, Sha'ar, had the power to accomplish what no other weapon of man could, and with its power the demons were cast from the realm of man. Like realm of mortals better. There was another spirit blood, Legal. Spared the fate of the flood because of her faith, she vowed vengeance upon the deceitful Amura. Though the blood in Legal's veins was tainted, her heart was pure. She was given charge to watch over man, and at times intervene when called upon to purge evil where it flourished. The order of the Keepers of the Blade continued to exist through the ages, their number always 3, and their fallen replaced many times over. When a star appeared, a sign my order has waited since the first of the brothers bore the price of the blade. An old foe returned to the earth to finish what had been started 2 millennia ago. With Legal's defeat, I and my companions set out to follow the star's leading, but we were not alone in our search. Dun dun dun. Night crept in, and the patter of thickening rain covered the farmed fields of rustling grain. Winds from the Mediterranean swept in and threatened to tear the stalks from the soil. A man strode alone through the storm, leading a patient camel. Realizing the need to seek shelter, the traveler's eyes spotted a flickering light in the darkness. With the clack of his tongue, I don't know how they do that, the man prodded the mangy beast along. Unsure of what providence led him to this remote village, he advanced, assured he would discover the reason for his journey's interruption once he crossed the expanse of the swaying barley. Coffee. Pace increased to escape the inclement weather with as much haste as possible. Izana saw the outline of the structures in the distance. Torchlight came from a tower built of wooden beams, and at its base rose a palisade that wrapped around the village. No doubt the Empire had secured its grip over this land to plunder its granaries through taxes. Unpleased with the prospect of having to bargain his way inside the walls, Izana mournfully approached the main gate. The traveler could see the glint of Roman bronze atop the tower that overlooked the entrance. The soldier appeared to be at attention, but a second glance revealed the man to be dead as the dried oak that supported his limp frame. The refugee approached the gate and found the double doors unbarred. He peered through the open space of the gatehouse with a cautious eye and surveyed the street dimly lit by sconces. Corpses littered the ground in the fashion of battle. Their blood, mixed with the rain, was pooling into the drain trenches alongside the main road. Wary lest the invaders still be inside, Izana pushed the door open. Hood draped low over the eyes, he walked in silence amongst the dead. Some were Roman citizens, those who sought a new life in the conquered lands of their ever-expanding empire. Whole families were torn from their homes and cast onto the street. Others were the empire's garrison. Judging by the soldiers' lack of armor, they were caught off guard by the raid. The barracks for the cohort lay ahead, its door splintered down and its court strewn with bodies. After putting every Roman to the sword, the rebels plundered the town, securing weapons and taking all they could carry from the storehouses. The element that confused the wayward traveler was the Hebrew inhabitants. They were not among the dead or anywhere to be seen. Izana knelt by what appeared to be one of the raiders. Scarred flesh in the Latin letter F on the man's forearm told that he had once been a servant or a slave, now turned fugitive. Also, below the branded mark was the ink shaped of 2 olive branches. This meant that the raider was a member of the Maccabees, Hebrew freedom fighters. He was still analyzing the man where the Hebrew groaned and drew breath. Izana gathered the marauder's body into his arms and carried it into the nearest home. The man moaned again as he was laid on the table. After fetching a torch from outside, Izana lit as many oil lamps as he could find. Using the faint light, he drew a slender knife from his belt and gingerly worked out an arrow that was lodged into the right side of the rib cage. The color of the gushing blood allowed the surgeon to know that no organs had been punctured. The liver would bleed darker if the arrow's point had penetrated that deep, and with its toxins released, the man would go into fever and die despite anything the old wanderer could do. Fortunately, the coloration remained constant. Once the point and shaft of the projectile had been removed, Izana slid a silver coin into the wound. Threaded with silk, a needle made of thinly sharpened bone was eased through the man's skin. Guided by Izana's careful hand, the needle wove the flesh closed around the coin. When the task had been completed and the blood cleaned away, he attended his camel, Oren. With the night's moon halfway through its cycle, the wary traveler laid his head to rest while the storm raged outside. Morning did not catch Izana in his slumber, but he had risen well before the dawn. As the first rays of the sun appeared on the horizon, he climbed the height of the village's tower to scout for any who would have traveled through the night to come to the town's aid. Rich fields waved in the golden light encompassing the palisade. Coffee! Roads spread in the 4 directions of the wind. The watchman scanned each carefully, then returned to the ladder. Before Izana began his descent, he spotted a trail of dust approaching from the west. Without a moment's hesitation, the limber Ethiopian slid down the ladder as if he were 100 years younger. The ground reached in a blink of an eye. He swiftly found his feet. Black cloak flowing behind him, he sprinted to awaken Oren. I can't remember any of this, and I'm really enjoying it. Groaning and baring his teeth stubbornly, the camel resisted his master while he was led out to the street. Izana entered the house and rushed to the Hebrew's side. The man's eyes opened wearily and stared into the brown pupils of his dark-skinned savior. "Where am I?" he muttered in his own tongue before passing from from consciousness. Hebrew gently lifted to his shoulders. Izana carried the man to Oren and slung the body between the animal's two humps. The camel moaned complainingly, but easily handled the load. The old master needed no bridle to lead the beast. It simply trotted faithfully behind. Izana clacked his tongue to hurry Oren along. I won't try to clack this time. And soon they were outside the forsaken village, leaving through the southern gate. Drenched from the storm the night before, the muddied road stretched toward the Golan Heights. Izana sighed and felt the silver handle of a sword hidden within his cloak. We must make haste, my friend. The road will leave an easy trail. I'm enjoying this. Legal did not know how far she had traveled since the storm struck. Snowfall permeated the frosty air of the northern mountains and blanketed the sky. Only sparse patches of evergreens provided any landmarks to ensure that she was not going in blind circles. Her black cloak saturated with the wet flakes, the Nephilim trudged through the deepening snow. A shrieking wind picked up from the west and blew in staggering gusts. The Gaul was forced to fight each step, but at least now she could travel in a linear direction by following the wind. The Gaul pulled the brim of her hood low. She removed her war helm long before in exchange for a warmer cloth covering that shielded all but the gleam of her purple irises. She scanned for any sign of the creature she'd been tracking for these many weeks, keeping her pale fingertips on the leather grips of her twin sabers. Mountain ranges loomed to the north and south, their jagged and foreboding outlines nearly masked by the white storm. The valley deepening, the Gaul's senses drew her toward a ridge that cut across the middle of the whitened terrain. The cliff dropped before her and revealed a deep chasm within the valley. The gait pattern of a four-legged beast was imprinted into the ground below, new layers of snow almost hiding the trail of her quarry. Certain the creature was far ahead, the Gaul leapt from the edge of the cliff. Irises shimming with a release of mystic energy, the Nephilim landed with one knee bent. She arose unharmed from the great fall and hurried to inspect the tracks. Now close, she realized the massive imprints and elongated stride could only belong to the creature she'd been hunting. A rock fell loose from the cliff above, and Legal's eyes shot upward. She had sensed a presence following her for the past few days, and almost began to think it was all in her head. She knew finding the balance between being both prey and hunter may be the only chance to bring down the creature and escape with her life. The Gaul moved on after nothing revealed itself above the ridge, the haunting chill of watchful eyes following her. Dun, dun, dun. The Gaul followed the tracks until the sun passed below the snow-capped peaks behind her. An orange glow of fire flickered in the distance amidst the lightning flurries. The lightning furies. Oh, lightning and snow would be cool. Amidst the lightning flurries, a small village perhaps. Sorry, I botched that sentence. Let's read it again. An orange glow of fire flickered in the distance amidst the lightning flurries. A small village perhaps. Her stare narrowed on the path ahead. Where are you going, Abaddon? The fog from her breath washed across her face. Not wishing to arrive late to another of the beast's slaughters, the Gaul lengthened her strides and hoped she could put an end to the dark plague before it washed across this land.
Coffee?
The Gaul stopped for some coffee at the local Starbucks. The valley fanned out beneath the stars, and constructed upon a rocky outcropping in the foothills of the southern range was a small hunting camp. A ring of wooden spikes guarded the perimeter, and several yurts were grouped around a central fire. The Gaul's stride slowed to a sudden halt, and she knelt in the shadows. The deep clawed imprints of the creature's track had vanished and replaced by the simple gait of a normal man. The Nephilim felt her heart beat increase. The moment was drawing near. Soon either she or the demon would fall. The last of the Nephilim, she was the only mortal upon the earth capable of slaying the beast now, Abaddon. I think it's actually Abaddon. Abaddon could decimate an army of men with ease, and even conquer empires in time. Legal did not even know how the creature had returned. Abaddon was an apparition of the past, from a world long forgotten, and now he'd been resurrected into a physical form. It did not matter how. Legal knew why he had returned. His presence only confirmed what the star in the east warned. The light of Eden, the lost stones, had been brought back from the nether realm. The demon would seek to unite the orthonium stones once more. If she did not stop him, Abaddon would soon find the entrance to the temple, where the only recovered section of the light of Eden had been hidden for ages past. Dun dun dun. Worries abandoned to regain focus on the task at hand. Legal drank some coffee, and then took to the foothills to avoid detection. She climbed to an obscured perch above the camp and scanned the grounds for any sign of the demon. His ability to change forms was not something Legal had expected. It would make finding him difficult, but perhaps, if she was careful, the kill would only take one blow instead of the vengeful melee she had imagined. But we like the vengeful melees, they're more exciting. The orange glow of the large fire danced upon the ice and snow covering the mountainside. A company of men sat around the fire, waiting for a spitted deer carcass to finish roasting, unaware of the danger that approached. A figure appeared from the shadows. He was tall and wore a tattered cloak with a hood that obscured his face. The hunters rose once they spotted the newcomer. Not used to visitors in the wild, some men grabbed spears and pulled iron knives from their belts. A man with a haggard beard engaged the stranger, fog venting from his mouth as he spoke in a Germanic tongue. The Gaul had already begun her descent toward the rear of the camp with a saber drawn. Haste and stealth both were needed if she were to catch the demon unaware. Inside the perimeter, she crept along the outside of a dwelling covered with bear and elk pelts stitched together. I found a mistake, finally. This one's actually a mistake. Stitched together with tendon and sinew. If you guys see any mistakes, because I'm just trying to read, so I miss a lot. Let me know. Put them in the comments. Stitched together with tendon and sinew. She paused within the last remnant of cover before the firelight would reveal her, and listened to the exchange of words. She paused and okay, it's all right. I'll allow it. She understood little of the barbarian language, but could tell the apparition was describing landmarks. He was trying to locate the mountain of Eden and the tunnels burrowing deep into its base. The Gaul reached in her cloak to retrieve her war mask and slid it over her face. Her eyes shone bright through the orbits of the horned visor, and steam vented from her nose. Both blades at the ready, and the Nephilim rushed out, with her tattered cloak flowing behind her. The flames reflected upon the steel as they came within striking distance, ready to cut the beast to its core. A shadow passed over Legal, with a rush of wind, and a fist gripped her by the hood. Lifted from the ground, she was released above the hood of one of the yurts and crashed through the canvas. Women and children fled the hut with screams, running past the stunned Nephilim. Eyes lifted to the tear in the canvas, Legal saw a tall being with wings of grayed feathers descend from the fog. The unworldly creature perched upon the framework of the yurt, and its widespread wings folded behind him. He stared at the Nephilim with hollow white eyes, and a grin curved up one bony cheek. "I see time has made you weak, Lay." The spirit reached for the sword hanging from a belt of chains wrapped around his waist. "Do you not remember your old master?" Hate seethed through Legal's clenched teeth with each breath, and she took a sip of coffee. She looked with disdain upon the spirit that had betrayed her, and slain the one who'd reclaimed her soul. If it were not for Cohen, she would have followed in her brother's footsteps into perversion and darkness. Her brothers were bad guys. "I know your true allegiance now, right, Tam? The Watcher. Legal rose, her stance hunched like a lioness, ready to lurch for the kill. Cohen's spilt blood still cries out for justice, and if not by my blade, Lucifer will gladly send an executioner to repay your treachery. Raytam, his wings bristled. That name was a curse and a chain the Creator placed upon me, but I have broken that bind, and soon I will replace it firmly around his neck. Dun dun dun. The apparition's blade began to flicker red, as if pulled from a furnace. I did not expect you to join me this time, but I thought I'd give you the opportunity before I released your spirit. He grinned. For old time's sake. Death first, Legal whispered coldly. Irises flaring to warn Raytam of her attack, Legal launched into the air and nearly caught the spirit before he soared out of range. Landing on the adjacent roof, she balanced on the frame of the structure. On the ground, Abaddon glared at her from beneath his hood, slowly retreated into the shadows away from the fire, his eyes seething through the night. The women and children had gathered out in the open and stood waiting, unaware of the carnage about to take place. Silence had overtaken the village, but for the crackle of firewood and a faint gust that brought with it a fresh snow. The leader of the men saw 3 white eyes in the darkness where Abaddon had disappeared and began to retreat. A wicked hiss cut the air, and 6 vipers struck from the night and latched onto the hunter's neck and face. The serpents' tails were formed as one, reaching out from the shadows. Whipped back, the scaly cord yanked the man out of sight with a cry. Dun-dun-dun. Red fumes venting from his jaws, and 5 black horns protruding from an elongated skull. Abaddon appeared in his true form. On all 4s the creature charged, with a blasting roar that suffocated the hunter's fire. Hurling spears at the monstrous foe, the men gave the women and children a chance to run for safety. 6 wings unfolded from the demon's high-arched back and protected him from the spears. Each wing was tipped with a spike. Some jabbed at the men below, and others spread like a raven's long beak and gave off an ear-numbing screech. This dude's badass. Legal sprung while the beast was distracted and took a sip of coffee. Her sword prepared for a downward thrust. She landed behind Abaddon's shoulder blades and drove the blade deep. The demon roared and tried to shake the Nephilim off, but Legal held fast to the sword, which anchored her to his back. Abaddon's tail lashed upward, and the vipers caught hold of Legal's leg, their red eyes glowing. She felt a poison worm into her blood, but she was too strong for it to take full effect. Holding fast, Legal used her other saber to sever the serpent's vile heads. The shortened tail spouted oily blood and swung away and writhed about as if it were now blind. That's freaking awesome. Fully enraged, Abaddon reared up on his hind legs. Legal stiffened her grip and ready to plunge, aimed at piercing the demon's foul heart. A flash of brilliant orange appeared in the Nephilim's periphery and spread toward her. Barely having time to react, she withdrew the stained blade from Abaddon's shoulder in order to block the projectile. Raytam's fiery sword slammed in Legal's and shoved her from the demon's back. She rolled several paces into a bank of snow, but quickly found her footing. Abaddon was upon her in an instant, charging in mad, wounded fury. The Nephilim flung one saber to slow her enemy down, catching him in the foreleg. A tendon injured by the desperate throw, Abaddon stumbled and collapsed. His mighty impact caused ice to shatter and fragment into the air as he rolled to his back. The demon's throat exposed, Legal threw all her remaining power into an overhead slash. Intent on its path, the blade seemed near to banishing Abaddon's wicked soul when a gray form swept down from above. Dun-dun-dun. Legal's blade clattered away from her grip as Raytam slammed into her. His clawed nails gripping her throat, the apparition used his momentum to drag the Nephilim into the air. Helpless, Legal could not draw a breath and took a sip of coffee. And clutched to Raytam's iron forearms as her feet lifted from the ground. His wings beating hard against the added weight, he climbed higher until the land below was veiled by the mountain mist. Hair glistening in the starlight's silver ambience, Raytam's fanged teeth bared an evil grin. If Sheol takes you, he pulled Legal's face close to his. Give my regards to Cohen. Raytam released his grip and shoved the boot into Legal's gut, releasing her to the air. Legal gasped from the blow and felt her eyes go blank from the lack of oxygen as she fell. He watched, victory pounding in his chest as the Nephilim's cloak fluttered into the night until she vanished from below. Vanished from sight. Wings softening their beats to balance him, Raytam's gaze leveled on the eastern star. Who can stop me now? His breath was glazed with frost, and he took a sip of coffee. A long draught of coffee. Only time. Mwah! Mwah! Good night, children. Next time, join me for Chapter 3.